Hello and welcome to today's BITRIX24 webinar, Better Business Processes. Thank you very much for joining today. Okay, so first of all, we'll go through an introduction. So my name is Sam Connor and I'm sales manager here at Interface. And we're BITRIX24 Gold Partners based in the UK, the US and Hong Kong. And we offer a full range of services to assist you with BITRIX24. So starting off with pre-sale support, so we can really help you to evaluate BITRIX24 and see if it is a good fit for what you're trying to achieve. And if it is, we can then set up the system so we can design out your BITRIX24 exactly how you need it to work. If you're interested in the self-hosted edition of BITRIX, then we can provide our hosting service. And we also provide tailored training and ongoing dedicated support to help businesses get the most possible value out of the BITRIX24 system. Okay, so if you are joining today's webinar to actually get some more understanding about BITRIX24, let's just go through at a higher level what BITRIX24 actually is. So BITRIX24 is a collaboration suite of well in excess now of 40 different modules that you can use to help you to manage your business. And there are over 15 million organizations now that use BITRIX24 around the world. And the system, it's available in two different editions. So we have the BITRIX24 Cloud, and we also have the BITRIX24 self-hosted solution. And then in terms of pricing, so prices start from $49 for a cloud-based system. So that's the basic cloud edition. There are different versions of the cloud, so that ranges up from the base to the standard, professional, and enterprise. And there is also the self-hosted solution, also called the on-premise, or essentially it's a private cloud edition of BITRIX24. And that is priced at, starting at the Business 50 edition, priced at $3,590. That's for the first 12 months. And then you pay a renewal fee each year to continue to access the system. Okay, so today's webinar is all about business processes. So we're going to be drilling down today to look at the different ways you can manage workflows and business processes inside BITRIX24. Now, we are live on YouTube, so if you have any questions, just add them into the question box and we can run through those questions throughout the intervals of today's webinar. And you can also contact us later on as well. I'll add our contact details. So if, after the webinar, if you still have more questions, you can contact us and one of our team will be happy to help you. Okay, so first of all, in today's session, let's just go through what are business processes. It's really important to actually understand what a business process actually is. So essentially, within the BITRIX24 system, a business process allows you essentially to have a flow of information defined by either a route or a scheme. Okay, and there are different types of business processes in BITRIX24. So what we'll do first of all is let's take a look at the different types of business processes. So first of all, in the session today, we're going to take a look at a sequential business process. Okay, so a sequential business process performs a series of consecutive actions on an item, and most importantly, that is from a predefined start point to a predefined end point. So we're going to jump into our BITRIX24 system here, and what we can see here, we can see a workflow, and you can see here in this is a leave approval workflow. So we've got a start point, and you can see the information that we're running through here, and we've got the actions here. So we're going through the workflow, an approval process in this workflow, and then we get to this endpoint here. So you've got that predefined endpoint and a start point. So that's a sequential business process. And the next business process is a state-driven process. An estate-driven business process, it does not have a start or an endpoint. What it has is a series of statuses, and each status then triggers a child process on the system. So let's now jump back into our Bitrix, and here, this is what a state-driven business process looks like. So this, most commonly, you will find on documents. So, for example, in this state-driven business process, we can see we've got 3 different statuses here. So this is what we can run on our documents. And then underneath that status, there are child processes that can run. So let's say if we move the document to a draft status, it's then going to send it for an approval. And once approved, it goes to a publishing process. So those are underneath the status there. Another type of automation process, it's within the CRM. So that is CRM automation. So this is probably the most common area because the CRM is the most utilized module in BITRIX24. So inside the CRM, in lots of areas essentially, but we'll look at this in leads, you've got an automation center here in the background. So as you progress your leads through different stages, there's different automations we can set up. So here, for example, this is an email that we have set up. So that's going to automatically go out when the lead comes into the CRM system. And there are hundreds of different types of automations we can set up. So ranging from communications to the customer, or it could be notifications or alerts or tasks for the internal team. So there is a huge variety of automations you can set up here. And that doesn't just have to be in leads or deals. We can run those as well in a feature called Smart Process Automation. So this is the 4th type of process here. So this allows you to create new entities inside the CRM system. Now, the Smart Process Automation feature, and in fact, all of the processes we're looking at today around the Business Process Designer tool. If you're looking at the Smart Process Automation feature, or even the sequential, so the state-driven business process, you need to have at least a professional cloud license to access those tools. So if you're on an on-premise system, that's absolutely fine. You'll have access to these features. But if you are on a basic or a standard cloud license, you will need to upgrade to have access to some of the features that we are looking at today. And then the final area we'll look at here is RPAs. Okay, so if we go into our system here, RPAs allow you to create your own unique workflows inside BITRIX24. And this was built really to accommodate customers who found the Business Process Designer tool here too complex. Okay, so the Robotic Process Automation tool, it feeds a lot of the technology that we have inside the CRM system. So you can use stages and automation rules to create your own HR workflows directly inside the BITRIX24 system. Okay, so that is a look at the different types of business processes in BITRIX24. So I hope you're starting to see that really there isn't just one area inside the BITRIX24 system where you would run a business process. Really, you want to understand here that business processes, they're really built into many areas of the BITRIX24 system. And let's take a look now at those different areas where you can run business processes. Okay, and as we say, if you have any questions, please do add them into the question box. Okay, so now let's take a look at where we can run business processes. So really, business processes, they can be managed in lots of different areas of Bitrix. So on the cloud system, we've got in the HR and administration area, so that's in the feed on Bitrix. We have the CRM system. So in leads, deals, contacts, companies, SPAs, you can run business processes. On documents, if you use lists in Bitrix, so within a project, for example, you could run a business process. and also on tasks. And then also on the self-hosted edition, what we can do is it's possible to actually build out customizations as to where business processes can be run. So let's just take a look at some of those in more detail. Okay, so we'll go first of all to the home page. So here in the feed area here, so this is the first area back inside our BITRIX system. If we click into more and into the workflow, you can see here a selection of business processes that I could run. So let's say if I wanted to submit a leave request, I can click on that form and it opens up the form inside the system that I can use to trigger and start that process. Now, you can customize here what fields display on the form, and also you can customize what workflows actually show in this workflow area here. So it's very customizable to how your organization works. Okay. Next, if we go into the CRM, so I could go into leads, deals, contacts, or companies. Let's go into companies and into one of our organizations. And then what we can do inside here, I can click into the workflow area here, and I can trigger a workflow directly through the system here. And as we've seen, we've already got automation set up inside leads and deals. So let's go into the drive area next. So in the drive area, we're in the company drive. What I can do here is I can turn on the business process feature, and this shows all of the business processes inside the drive area. And so if I click into documents here, I could run that business process like so. Now, one thing to point out here, if you're trying to do that and you can't see the business process feature there, what you need to ensure is you need to click on configure business processes and tick that button. Okay, so you just need to make sure you've got that activated. And again, just to re-mention, you need to have at least a professional cloud edition to have access to these features that we're looking at today. If you're not seeing these features, it's most likely that you're on a basic or a standard cloud license and you don't have access to the business process feature on your system. Okay, so that is a look in the drive area. So that's a really useful feature to be able to run processes from. We mentioned in tasks, so you might want to run automations in tasks. So if we click into the automation center here, again, what we can do is you can run automations based on the different stages of the Kanban for your tasks. So I can click into here, and this then opens up the stages of this project's Kanban view. And you can then run automations here. So let's say if we have a stage which is the overdue stage, for example. If the task becomes overdue here, it's going to automatically update what stage the task is at. And based on that trigger now updating to the overdue stage, it's going to automatically now send a notification to the team members that the task is now overdue. And we're going to change who is responsible for that task as well. So let's say it's going to go to a more senior manager to get that task back on track. And if we go into a project, another feature you can enable is lists. So if you maybe don't know what lists are, essentially lists are tables of information that you can store in a project. So very customizable. For example, here in this particular process, we have expenses. So let's add a new expense. Okay, so I'm going to add this expense into the project. And you can now see with the expenses that we have added, let's just take a look at our recent expenses. So you can customize the date range here. And so the one we just added, which is currently pending, what we can then do is we can run a business process on that expense. So that's now gone to the project owner. So we can see we're waiting on the approval. So that's now running an approval process on that specific information. So as I mentioned at the start of today's webinar, you can start to see how all of these different types of processes, they are built into all areas of the BITRIX24 system. We've had questions before where people have been looking on the menu here for a business process module. There isn't a module for this. It is built into the framework of the BITRIX24 system. So you're going to see processes available in nearly all modules of the BITRIX24 system. Okay, so that is a look at some of the different areas where we can run processes. And I also mentioned with the self-hosted system, you're able to run processes in more customizable areas. So for example, on a user's profile page, if you wanted to have a process trigger and run on the system here, based on maybe information that's inputted into their profile, we have the capacity and capability to customize the system to enable that to be run. Okay, so let's just see if we have any questions that have come in on here. Okay, yep, so we had a question we have received earlier on. Is BITRIX supplied with pre-built business processes? So in terms of automations and the business processes that we've just seen there on the CRM, those are customized business processes. So they're not out of the box. So they need to be set up. And that's where our team here at Interface, we can provide our expertise to build out the automations and those custom business processes that you require. But in terms of the question asking, are there any standard business processes that come out of the box? Yes, there are. So if we go into the workflow directory, you can see here, these are the standard workflows you get with BITRIX24 system. So that includes an expense report, general requests, leave approvals, purchase requests, and business trips. So you get 5 really core workflows, and then you can start to flesh out those workflows and customize them using the business process designer tool. Okay, so moving on now, looking at how we can create a business process. So many people ask, how do we create business processes? Because it's a very advanced system inside the BITRIX24 platform that you can use to build out your very own processes inside the system. So BITRIX includes a very advanced visual editor tool for building business processes. It uses simple drag and drop technology, and it includes over 40 pre-built action blocks. So what we'll do in this stage of the webinar is let's take a look at how we can build a business process using the business process designer tool. And we'll see then how that then connects into the CRM system. So what we'll do first of all here is let's go into our CRM. And inside here, what we now need to do is we need to design a workflow and decide which area of the CRM system we would like this workflow to be connected to. So what I want to do is build a workflow using the business process designer tool that is connected to deals. Okay, so what we'll do first of all is let's go into settings and into the CRM settings area. And then we want to go down to the automation area and then click on business processes. Okay, so clicking on business processes, this now opens up all of the entities available inside our CRM system. And as I mentioned, I want to run a business process on deals. So I'm going to click in the deals feature and add a template. Okay, so first of all, in here, I need to add a title for my business process. So what we're going to do here is we're going to build out a workflow that is going to look at the stages of the deal. And at different stages, we're going to have different actions that are then run inside the system. And what we want to do is continuously have the system check what stage the deal is at. So let's call this deal stage change. And so then from here, we can then click on how we want this process to run. So whether it's when the deal is added, we don't want that to happen because I want this to be looking constantly at what stage the deal is at. Do we want this to run when any changes are made to the deal? Or maybe we want to just run this manually. So I could click in the manual area. But let's do this on when there is a change on the deal. So then it can check in the system. And just to explain, what we can do is we can see this is a sequential business process because we have a start and an endpoint. Okay, so you have that sequential process tool here that we're using. And then what we have on the right hand side are all of the different action blocks that are available in the business process designer tool. And this is really useful because there are a huge variety of action blocks that we can run. Now, one thing I will point out as well is with the self-hosted edition of BITRIX24, there are some additional action blocks that are available to you, such as the PHP code block that you can see here. So this essentially allows you to create action blocks using the PHP source code. So you can create more advanced actions inside the business process designer tool. But what we'll use here is the standardized action blocks in our workflow. So first of all, we're going to be adding a condition here because we want the system to look at 3 different stages of our sales process. So let's now add our conditions into here. So what we want to do first of all is we want to choose the field, and the field is going to be the stage that the deal is at. So we can click into here and select what stage the deal is at. So let's say equal to, and what we'll do here is then we'll select that field type. So what we're going to do here is we're going to select from our web developer pipeline. So let's say we're at the quote creation stage. So we'll create this as a stage. So what this is now going to be doing is looking, is the deal at that specific stage in the pipeline. So we'll just set these up now for the 3 conditions. And if you have any questions as we're going through this, please do add them into the YouTube box and we can answer these as we go through. So let's now add this as the client review stage. And then the last stage, let's now add this for when the deal has been approved. Okay, so there is the deal 1 stage. So we now have our 3 stages that the business process is looking at, but constantly looking to see if those are being triggered in the system. Okay, and now what we can do is we can add our different actions that we want to take place. Okay, so what we can do first of all is let's now go into here. When we're creating the quote, we want to run a credit check task on that. And once it's at the client review stage, we're going to pause for 7 days, and then we're going to trigger and make a phone call to check if the customer would like to proceed. And when the deal is won, let's notify the sales manager. And what we will also do is let's send the customer an email thanking them for their order. And you can drill into each condition here, and this gives you the framework here. You can see all of the context and the information about that specific action. So let's say if I go into the credit check, I can see the task that's being set up. So you can click into each action block, and that's where the actual information about that action is stored. And so now this condition is going to constantly check when a change is made to the deal. Are we at the quote creation stage? Are we at the client review stage? Or are we at the deal 1 stage? If the deal is at either of those stages, it will then run that process inside the system. Okay, so that is how we can create business process inside the system. Now, if you were to run that manually, let's just click into a deal. So again, just like we saw earlier on, you would see that inside here. If you were going to run this manually, it would display inside the system here. And essentially, if we were to run this on any edit of the system, let's say if we were to create a field, let's say if I select a field here, for example, if I was to change the end date of the deal, then this side here, say if I was to update the end date of the deal, that would then trigger that process that we have just done because we were running it on edit. So it's any edit to the deal is then going to trigger that process in the background. And then another area you can run that a similar type of process is using automations, which we looked at earlier on. So essentially, just to explain automations in a little more detail, with an automation, you can run a process when the deal hits that specific stage. Okay, so there's a variety of automations you can set up. Very popular are to send out communications to customers. So you might want to send out an email or an SMS to a client, for example. And for example, here, if we look at here, it dynamically populates with the details about the deal. So here we're pulling in the information about the responsible person, for example. And so you can really customize your email correspondence depending on what you would like to automate to the customer. And if you would like more training or if you'd like more details about the types of automations that you can run, then please do contact us, sales@interface.com. And one of our team will be happy to schedule a call with you to discuss your automation requirements in more detail because using automations inside BITRIX, it really allows you to get the most possible value out of the CRM because it can automate lots of manual processes that you will be performing right now within your organization. This is then going to free up time for you and allow your sales staff, if you're using the CRM, to focus on closing more sales opportunities. Okay, so we've seen there how we can create a new business process inside the system using the sequential business process designer tool. And we started to briefly talk there about the ways we can trigger a business process. And this is really important because running a business process, having that designed is important, but actually controlling when that process takes place is really critical for lots of businesses. So there are different ways a business process can be triggered or initiated inside the system. So first of all, that can be done on creation. So for example, when a deal is created inside the system, that first time when it's created, it could run a business process. If an update is made on that deal, like where we change the end date of the deal, that could then cause that process to trigger. Or you can run a process manually, like we've just seen. If we go back into the deal, when we talk about manual creation, it means selecting it from the drop down list here inside the CRM. Or if you're in the feed section, it means going into the more section, clicking into the workflow and selecting the workflow and then filling in the details. It's a manual process of triggering the workflow. Or there are other alternatives, such as, and this is becoming a lot more popular, using webhooks. Okay, so you might want to trigger a process to be run based on maybe an external system. So let's say once a piece of information maybe is triggered, then that could flow as a webhook and create a new trigger to force a workflow inside the BITRIX24 system. And with the self-hosted system, a very popular tool is to use the email trigger process. So if I go into our control panel, so this edition of BITRIX here, this is a self-hosted edition of BITRIX. If we go into our mailbox area, you can connect your mailboxes into BITRIX. And on this self-hosted system, what you can then do is you can create rules. So these are mailbox rules that you can create on the system. So for example, if you're using the native help desk system inside the self-hosted edition of BITRIX, what you could do, for example, is you could create a rule so it automatically, when a new email comes into that mailbox, it could automatically create a new help desk ticket inside the system. So with the self-hosted edition, you are able to create more advanced triggers and processes. As we saw earlier on, we also have access to the PHP code block as well. And that is used quite often as well to build out more advanced functionality within the business process designer tool. Okay, so that's a look at how we can trigger a business process. And what we'll do now is let's take a look at a few live examples. Let's just see if there are any other questions that have come in since we last looked at the question areas. Okay, so is the API available on the cloud? The full API is not available on the cloud. You have access to the REST API. So if I just come into a cloud edition here, what you can do is on your BITRIX, if you click into the developer resources area, then what you can do inside here is you can use this area to create inbound and outbound webhooks to maybe capture information, but this is using the REST API system. Okay, so you've got here the webhooks are called the REST API. So that's what you would have access to on the cloud edition of BITRIX24. Okay, so that's a really good question. If there are any other questions as well, please do add them into the question box and we can continue to run through those during the intervals of today's webinar. So the first live example we're going to look at today is the creation of a new project inside the system. So I hope so far today you've seen how creating business processes inside BITRIX24, it really does allow you to streamline a business that process that you currently manually run in your system. And it's not just a case of improving the speed, but also it can reduce human error as well. So in this example here, we're going to create a brand new project inside the system. So first of all, we can see here there is a form that needs to be completed. And just to explain here, with the fields of information that we need to input here, that is completely customizable to how you design your workflows. So we've got here 3 fields that are mandatory. There's some additional fields that are optional. You can control what fields are mandatory, what are optional, and what those fields are as well. So you can really customize your workflow. So first of all, let's now create the project. So we're going to be building out a project team for a CRM creation. So first of all, we need to add a manager and then a designer for the build outs of the CRM. And then we're going to select a deadline for when the project is to be completed. And then we can see we've got a description area. So let's add a description. Okay, so we're adding a description into here. And then we can add files. So maybe we have a project file to add here. And then I need to select what type of project this is. And this is really important because this is a condition. Okay, so as we saw earlier on, using the sequential business process designer tool, we can add conditions, and based on the condition, it will then channel the workflow down a specific route. So selecting the type here, this will determine what types of tasks are added into this project. So you can imagine in a business, if there are many different types of projects that you run with then different tasks based on that type of project, you could build that out using the Bitrix Business Process Designer tool. So I'm going to select project type A, and then let's now trigger the process in the system. Okay, so what we can see here, that has now started the process, and it's gone to the project owner that we selected to confirm the go ahead of the project. Okay, and let's approve the project in the system. And you can see now that has completed the workflow. So if we go into our project management area of Bitrix, we can see now the CRM implementation project has now been created, and we can see this first task. So the scoping task, it's automatically been added into the system here, and it's brought in the relevant team members who need to be working on the project, and it's created the relevant areas for the project, such as the calendar and the drive area, so we can store documentation as the project materializes. So using that workflow tool there, it's automatically created that project, saving time and reducing human interference and error, because it's automatically creating those different elements of the project inside the system for me. Okay, so let's take a look at another example. And the next example we're going to look at is a leave request. Okay, so within BITRIX24, you're able, again, from the professional cloud and above here, to submit leave requests. So if we go back into our Bitrix, we'll go into here as another user. So if I want to submit for a holiday request, I can click on the workflow tool, and then from here I can select the request leave form. And once again, the form here you can customize. You can decide what fields need to be displayed here and what's mandatory. So I'm going to add a new holiday request. And then we're going to add a reason. And then we're going to submit our holiday request into the system. Okay, so we can see that request now. We can see that's now gone to the manager of this user to approve or to reject. And what's really nice with a workflow request here is the user it adds as an intranet post on the person's feed. So I can then continue to add maybe additional information. Okay, so we can add a little message there to the request. And then as the owner for this request, I can see that request has come into my Bitrix system. So I can see all of the details about the request, and I can decide whether to approve or to reject that request. But just before we do that, I just want to show you here the absence chart. So within the Bitrix system, you have access to an absence chart, so you can see all of the different requests that have come in to the system. So I can see what's already been approved at different time periods inside the system. So I can see the request for the 1st of August. Nobody else in the business is off right now, so I'm happy to approve that. And additional functionality we have with interface is we have our own bespoke module available, and this allows you to add leave entitlements for each user. So if I click into the user's profile here, we can see this user's leave entitlement. So we can see the total days available, what's currently pending, so that user's pending leave request, what that they have just requested. So if you want to be able to add an entitlement for each user in Bitrix, that's not available as standard. So we have that functionality built into our absence management module. So if that's something of interest to you, to be able to add leave entitlements and have that any entitlement that's remaining rolled over to the next holiday year, that functionality is available as well. using our absence management tool. So please do contact us, sales@interface.com, if you would like more information about that custom module. And so what we'll do now is I'm going to approve that request in the system. The user is now going to be notified that that holiday has been approved. And what we'll see is if we go back into the absence chart, that request will then get added into the system. Okay, and one final example here is let's now take a look at what we call the new smart script feature. So what we've seen today so far is how we can run automations in the CRM, say on leads or deals or on smart process automations based on the stage that the lead or the deal is at. But what smart scripts allow you to do is they allow you to build out your automations inside the system. So if we go into our script area here, we can see some automations that we have set up. So if we go into our scripts, okay, so in this, say, rainy day script here, what we are running here is we have our automation engine. So just like as you see inside stages in, say, leads and deals, the automation engine is exactly the same here in the background. So we can create different types of automations, whether it's communicating to the customer, setting up alerts for employees, etc. And so on this example here, we are gardening management organization. So we do lots of gardening business requests for organizations. So if the weather for that day is rain, we're not able to manage the landscaping business for that particular day. So what I can do is I could select a specific group of people. So using filters, I can drill down into a specific segment of data within the CRM. And then using the smart scripts feature, I can then send that specific automation to the specific group of people that I have selected. So rather than based on a stage, I'm sending an automation based on a specific segment of data that I have filtered on inside the system. So if I click into a user's profile now, that script we run, which was an automation of an SMS, we can see that SMS has now just gone out to that client because we've run that smart script feature there. So that's a new tool available in the system that allows you to trigger a process on a specific group of data inside your CRM system. And that's proving an incredibly popular feature. So again, you may not be aware of this tool. It's little features like this that can really take your BITRIX system to the next level. And again, our team here at Interface, we can help you with that. So those are a few examples of the different types of processes we can run inside BITRIX24. And so just to mention about the differences between the cloud and the self-hosted, well, first of all, in terms of the cloud, if you're looking to run business processes, if you're looking to use smart process automation, you need to have at least a professional cloud license. If you're on a basic or a standard, you have access to automations in the CRM. There is access to smart scripts as well. But if you're wanting to use the business process designer tool, and if you're wanting to use the smart process automation tool, you need to have a professional cloud license. But in terms of the differences between cloud and self-hosted, most of the tools are available in both from the professional cloud and self-hosted solutions. They include the business process editor tool for documents, HR and CRM items. I think the main difference between and the benefit of the self-hosted is the option to use the PHP code block within the business process designer tool, so you can build more flexible and customizable actions, and also being able to run processes in more areas of the BITRIX24 system. Okay, so that is the end of today's Better Business Processes webinar. So in summary, we've seen how we can run business processes on a variety of areas of BITRIX, from the CRM, documents, HR, lists, and on tasks. And so that's a really important piece to get across in today's webinar is the business process feature. It's not just one module, it's built into the framework of BITRIX24. And that business process designer tool, it uses a simple drag and drop technology as a workflow creator. And we've seen the different ways we can trigger business processes from manual triggering, automation, and also potentially by email or API call. Okay, so here are a selection of our upcoming webinars. We're here every other Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. But if you have any questions before our next webinar, you can contact us, sales@interface.com. And one of our team will be happy to discuss your questions and requirements in more detail and help you get more value out of BITRIX24. So thank you very much for joining today. I look forward to seeing you on our up and coming webinars. Bye for now.